about to enter a new dimension in television, a dimension of 3D sight, sound, and space.
Hey guys, so I just got out of Puppet Combo's Night Shift. This was put on by PVDHorror over in Providence, PVDHorror podcast. If you guys, whether you live in Providence or not, go check those guys out. They do amazing interviews. They do great stuff for the community, especially over here in Providence where we don't have a huge representation, but we have a lot of fans, and they do it's just incredible stuff. If you've never been to one of their screenings, highly recommend it. Over on Sims Ave in Providence, Buttonswood Brewery typically is where they'll screen their films, and I've been to a few, and it's just a blast every time. So this time was no different. Puppet Combo's Night Shift. I just heard about this like maybe 2 weeks ago. I guess this has been news for a while, but it's been off my radar for whatever reason. So I'm a huge fan of Puppet Combo. I first found out about them I think in like 2000 or 2019, maybe 2020. Doesn't really matter. I've been a fan for a long time. And the first, I think probably like most people, the first game that I like was aware of was probably either Nun Massacre or Night Shift. The first game I played by them was Night Shift. And whenever I go to show anybody Puppet Combo, like, and I've done this many times where I've turned people on to their games, and Night Shift is the one that I always pick to show them. I think it's just such a great representation of everything that they do. It's the perfect like little teaser of like all of their style. Although it is, just a piece of what is Stay Out of the House. That came out recently, but it's been in the works for a long time. And Night Shift, its different iterations have been floating around forever, since 2019 or maybe even before. So anyway, when I saw that they were going to make a movie out of it, I thought this was a really cool idea. Now I think Ben Kakuza is a filmmaker at heart. I really do. I think his games, he's a incredibly talented game maker, developer, whatever you want to call him. I've never, he has a lot of ideas. Not all of them get over the finish line, but I've never really played any of his games, or out betas and alphas and stuff like that, even where it's like, oh, this doesn't really work. Like, I think they all work because he's drawing from like such a well of like good inspiration, which is mainly like 80s and late 70s horror. Even just Stay Out of the House is an allusion or a reference, I guess, to Don't Go in the House, the 1979 film. And he even references that in one of his other games. I believe it's I think it was just when I played it, I think it was just called Playable Teaser, but it's supposed to be like Feed Me Billy 2. I'll put some of this stuff up on the screen so you know what I'm talking about. My point is, like, he references all this old material that has found an audience, a new audience, and I think it's a perfect storm of like great game development, great idea for a game, and then plus the fact that like there's this big resurgence in like old horror movies like that. And I should say too, this is I believe this is I want to say it's a pre-release screening, but there was a disclaimer at the beginning of the movie, like what you're seeing could be changed, right? So I guess it technically is a pre-release screening. Yeah, so it may change. So everything I say here is based on this like pre-release version. Whether things change or not, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with here. So Night Shift, one of my favorites by Puppet Combo. So I think this is like the second time this has ever been screened, at least in the US. And I might be one of the few like early reviews. So I'm not going to get into spoilers, and I just got out of this like tonight, like a couple hours ago. So I wanted to do it while it's fresh in my mind. And this is going to be kind of a longer video, just me kind of talking, and I can't put much footage up because obviously the film isn't really, you have to go to a screening to watch it. So I'm going to try and keep the spoiler free. If I do have a spoiler section, I'll put, a warning up. before I get into that. Yeah, so I was really excited for this. Kind of been counting down the days to go and watch this. I'm gonna give my honest opinion first of all, and say whether, give you an idea of if you think you're gonna like it. First of all, this is a low budget film. There's no doubt about it. So you have to know what you're getting into. There's going to be kind of like two camps really, with like a middle ground of people who watch this. There's going to be people who love it, and there's going to be people who hate it. There just is. I mean, it's like anything else, but I can tell you why there's going to be one or the other. The people who love it are going to be people who are diehard Puppet Combo fans, where Puppet Combo can do no wrong. I certainly fall into that camp to a degree, and there's going to be people who are familiar with shot on video movies, shot on 16 millimeter, even 8 millimeter stuff, who know what that is and what that kind of comes with that, and the people who like that kind of thing. I'm one of those people who so I fall into both of those camps. I love Puppet Combo, and I like that kind of movie. I just did a review recently of Sledgehammer, right? So it's like, obviously I like that kind of thing. There's going to be people who aren't familiar with that and are just familiar with like, your, I don't want to say generic, but your like classic horror films, or like, your Halloweens and your Friday the 13th and your like, like AAA horror, that kind of stuff. It's like maybe they've never seen, an old 16 millimeter kind of film, like Driller Killer or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, and then there's going to be people who just like don't like it because of how low budget it is, and because of how it leans into that. And then there's going to be the people who this is like their gateway, who they love Puppet Combo, and they love, the bigger name horror movies, and they're going to try and now like seek out stuff that's like this. So yeah, so it's going to be panned, I feel like, unless you know what you're getting into. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. I'm just going to say that right now. I really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. It's not perfect. I'm not going to say I 100% loved it, like fell over backwards for it. But I really, really liked it. I think it would serve me well to watch it again, to be honest. And I'm going to kind of talk about like some aspects of it that I liked, and some aspects of it that I didn't quite get. This is a very much inspired by, and so is the game, very much inspired by the movie Intruder, I feel like. I've heard multiple people say that, and I totally see it. Intruder's a 1981, I think, movie about a grocery store there's a killer that is on the loose in a grocery store, basically. Really fun movie. I would recommend checking it out if you haven't heard of it or seen it, and you like, Night Shift. The game, even like the game and the movie are very, very similar. The movie draws completely off of the game. There's some creative decisions to like differentiate it a little bit, but for like I'd say 90% of it like follows the game pretty faithfully. I'll get into that in a little bit, but yeah. So Intruder definitely reminds me of that. It reminds me of, and I've always felt like this was the biggest influence was Body Bags, the John Carpenter anthology film Body Bags, the first segment, the gas station segment.
I feel a little bit guilty leaving you out here all by yourself.
I'll be okay.
Did you hear the news tonight?
Yeah, it's horrible.
Felt like that and Intruder were like the big influences on this, is what I've always felt like. If you've never seen the first segment of Body Bags, go watch that. It's like basically Night Shift. I love those two movies. I love how it draws on that. And yeah, that's basically the plot of Night Shift is the game. So if you haven't played the game, this girl is alone on a night shift at a gas station, and there's a killer out on the loose. It's a pretty simple setup, but it's how it's executed that is what sets it apart. And how does that translate to film? Like, that's now the question, because the game's only like maybe a 20-minute experience. It's pretty simplistic in its design, but it how it's executed is so well done that it's a classic game. So how does that translate to a movie? This movie is an hour and a half, more or less. I think it's like 87 minutes. So to take all that and then like bring it to film and expand the story to 90 minutes is not an easy thing to do. And I think that it was done well. It does draw on parts of Stay Out of the House, for sure. There's elements of that. A lot of Easter eggs. I'm not going to say what Easter eggs are in there. I'll let you find those for yourself, but there are Easter eggs in there and references to other, puppet combo things. But yeah, so it works well as a movie. I feel like they definitely wanted to go bigger. Like, I can tell they were like they wanted to like do Stay Out of the House, but I feel like they just couldn't because of, I don't know, for budget constraints, potentially time constraints. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's a whole host of things. Making a movie is not easy. Not that I've ever done it, but I can tell you from friends who have done it and who work in the movie industry, like, it's not easy to do, especially something set in a period like this. This takes place in the 80s, and so that's one thing I'll talk about later, but like, there's a lot you have to fight against, right? So I think they did a really good job with that. The actors and actresses are really, really good. I thought the lead actress was incredible. She or lead actor was incredible. She's really good. Her co-stars are great. Katz, I believe, is his name. Pretty sure it's the same Katz from the game. I could be wrong, but like, they look identical. It was really cool to see a cameo from Wang. He was a highlight of the movie for sure. He's in like the first segment. He does a great job. And John Wolfe, was really cool seeing him on screen. The cameos that they get. So this movie is shot on 16 millimeter. I will give them a lot of credit for that. That's something that is not easy to do in ever, really, but especially like today. It's expensive, first of all. To shoot a movie on 16 millimeter in 2025 is not cheap. You need to find someone who knows how to do it, because it's not really done much anymore. You need someone who knows how to shoot film. You need to find someone who can, edit on film. I'm sure they scan it in digitally and edit it that way, but still, you need to get a lab, all that kind of stuff. So huge props to them for shooting on 16. There's a lot of movies nowadays who try to do the 16 millimeter look, and they'll shoot on video and then they'll run it through a bunch of effects and all this other kind of stuff to get like an approximation, but you're never going to get the same thing. You're just not. You can get close, but you're not going to get the same thing. And huge credit to them for doing that, because it really adds to the texture of the movie. But with that, there are some technical things, right? Now, are they trying to lean into the low budgetness of it? I think they are. In the beginning, there's a lot of like playing at it and like poking at it, I think, especially the scenes with Wang. But then it kind of carries on through the movie, and you're like, is this bit still going? I feel like it's set up in the beginning so that way you don't notice it as much as the movie goes on. Or at least if you do notice it, you're like, oh yeah, they're poking fun at it. But there are some parts of it that are a little more jarring. Some of the audio stuff is like, at least it could have just been the sound system too. I'm not watching this in a professional theater, so like some of the sounds, like some of the ambient stuff was like really high, and then it was like quiet, and then it'd be quiet bits. I don't know if they're like if they're recording the audio direct to film. I don't know if they're like shooting some of this live audio and then like keeping in the ambient background, or like they didn't want, or they couldn't take out the ambient sounds. Now they're working with what they have. I feel like you could ADR some of that stuff, but maybe they didn't want to because they wanted it to feel low budget. I'm not sure. Those are all aesthetic choices that like Ben and whoever else chose to have, I imagine. So, there is stuff like that, and that's why I say like some people who aren't familiar with this kind of movie are going to be like, why is that weird like that? I'm used to that kind of thing, so it's like I get what they're going for sure, but I think some people are going to be a little put off by that, or at least not understand why it is the way it is. But it is very authentic. It's very authentic to what it's the time that it's trying to do. And I don't just mean like the props and stuff like that, because there are some, again, like inconsistencies with like products and like signage and like things like that. And you know, it has, you know, it's hard on a low budget to like make everything look like 1986, even if it's just in a gas station. You know, I mean, I imagine they don't own this gas station. You know, they're like, they didn't just build a set, you know, like they're working with what they have. And so, you know, there's some stuff like a soda bottle or like a reflection of like a sign and stuff like that. You're like, it's obviously modern day, or like some stickers on the wall and stuff. It doesn't take you out of it. It's just, I just noticed those kind of things. But I think they're playing at that. Like they're poking at it. I don't think they're trying to take it too self-seriously. If you're a fan of things like Darkness, if you're a fan of things like The Driller Killer, Don Dohler movies especially, although it's not quite as cheesy as like a Don Dohler movie, but you know, that kind of like campy, cheesy, almost tongue-in-cheek kind of fun, I think you're really going to like it. You know, shot on video stuff like Night Ripper, The Burning Moon, you know, those kind of things where you're like, you know what you're getting yourself into. I think you're going to have a really good time. Like I said, it kind of wants to, I can tell that it wants to break out from the gas station. It wants to be more than Night Shift. And hopefully we get that, because I'm sure it wasn't feasible for your first movie, but you know, it's a great little snapshot of what Puppet Combo is all about, and kind of a proof of concept of like, can this work, right? Can I take a movie or like these movies that are inspiration, translate them to games, and then translate them back to film? And I think, yeah, you can. Definitely, you know, something like Murder House. I would love to see a movie based on Murder House. You know, I think that would be a great adaptation. There are even Stay Out of the House. You know, it might be a little, I don't know how you would do Stay Out of the House, but like Murder House, like I think that would be perfect. I think you can totally do it. I think, like I said in the beginning, I think Ben is a filmmaker first. I think it's like film first, then games, you know, is how he looks at things. And it's obvious in like his games, not just the fact that they're inspired by these movies, but in the fact that like how his characters and the plots and all this kind of stuff, like the narratives, feel very movie-like. So yeah, I think you could totally make it work. And I think this does work. It's just kind of a proof of concept, you know what I mean? Like kind of like a pilot program. I'd love to see more of this kind of stuff. Is it perfect? No, I would not say it's perfect. But if you like that kind of thing, and if you know what you're getting yourself into, I think you're not going to be disappointed at all. I'd love to see this get a physical media release, whether it's self-produced or not. On, you know, a Blu-ray, I'd love to own this physically. And I also think that they would do really well to hook up with Lunch Meat. If you don't know who Lunch Meat is, they do a lot of movies like repressed onto VHS, and they'll redistribute them. I'd love to see Lunch Meat hook up with these guys. Lunch Meat, if you're watching, go check out Night Shift by Puppet Combo. Slap it on a slab. I think this would do really well. Like this is kind of made for VHS. You know what I mean? Like it's just that kind of gritty, lo-fi movie that like would do well on VHS, and it would be a great collector's item. So yeah, I think it would serve both of you guys well to put it on VHS or just physical media, you know. Yeah, I mean, hopefully we get more of this. I mean, you know, it's great. You know, it's not perfect, but it's great. So yeah, that's my sloppy all over the place review for Puppet Combo's Night Shift. Go check it out if it's screening near you. I'll post like the tickets and stuff down below. Not sure where else it's playing. I think it's like I said, I think it's like the second time it's played. So there's plenty more coming up. I'm just not sure where. So go check that out. And I think you can even request, you know, if enough people request it to be shown in a city, I'm sure something can be arranged, you know. So yeah, guys, go check it out. Night Shift by Puppet Combo. See you guys. A massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you would like to support this channel, you can find those links in the description. Bye bye.